So I'm here with David Meltzer. He's the co-founder of Sports One Marketing, served as the CEO for Lee Steinberg, a sports and entertainment agency. It's a renowned agency. After that, actually, let me step back. I believe it was the inspiration for the Jerry Maguire movie, right? And now he's on a mission to, let's try and say, help people find happiness. And he wants to try and share that with over 1 billion people on the planet. That is some mission. Welcome, David. I appreciate you taking time and having the conversation with me.
Oh, it's incredible. And with your entrepreneurial background, Martin, I'm here obviously with Martin Warren. He is one of Britain's leading entrepreneurs. Luckily, he's bi-country, meaning bi-coastal of New York City to London in both my favorite cities. And most importantly, though, the creator of the top online program for entrepreneurs called entrepreneurseminar.com, inspiring, empowering entrepreneurs with the same mission, believe it or not, that I have. When you have those seminars, it's truly your own definition of happiness, my definition of making a lot of money, helping a lot of people and having a lot of fun, but also enjoying the consistent, everyday, persistent without quit pursuit of their potential. And I think that's the key nugget for entrepreneurs is how can you vote for what you want in your life and elect it into your life?
Excellent, excellent. So today we were going to spend some time talking about, how do you find an audience and stay committed to the journey, and what experiences do you go through? David, give me some thoughts. Where do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, well, I'm blessed to have a traditional sense of building an audience, right? When I ran Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment, the most notable sports agency in the world, we took world brands like Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Oscar De La Hoya, or in America, Warren Moon, Troy Aikman, Steve Young. But we built those audience traditionally in person, on the phone, via email, and traditional media, radio, print, TV, and social, and no social media at the time. What the difference today is that we only had a limited spectrum of people, radio, print, and TV, in order to distribute or amplify the content of the individual brands, of building an audience. Well, not only was it expensive, but it was limited. And what we have to realize today is that Shakespeare himself was right, that the whole world is now a stage. And when you realize that the world is a stage, then you realize there's 4 things we need to do in order to build a brand. 1, we need to capture the content correctly, right? When we are a personal brand, Martin, yourself, me, myself, or somebody else's brand, it is important to capture it and then to modify it, right? When we modify it to the different types of platforms that are available, still radio, print, TV, but also in person, on the phone, and email, we're capturing that content in different varieties of ways in order to modify it, to amplify it, and most importantly, perpetuate it. The difference is when we used to put up content in a magazine, a newspaper, a TV commercial, it was a one-shot deal. A billboard was the best recidivism that we had in perpetual data and branding. Now, today, what you put out there today may not be seen by millions for 10 years, but it will be seen if you stick to it with the consistent, persistent behavior.
Yeah, that's good context when I think of it as a life cycle. And it was interesting that you reflected on Shakespeare, and I'm British, and when you could have used Elvis, right? Each must play their part, right? It's true. So I'll come at it from a slightly different angle, but completely concurring with you that when you think about your audience, before we think about our content, we have to think about the needs of one person. Think about that demographic. The law of all truths is one truth. What does David want? If I want to capture David, what does he need? I write that down, I iterate, I think about it, and I look for one form of validation. Then I can understand if I want to scale David. Does David exist in the many? And then I'll look for the format, or the show format. I'll look for the content. I'll look for what can I serve him. It may not be content. It might be a product. It might be a service. And then I'll think about the conveyor belt. Right. And in doing that, if I've then got who I think my customer is or my audience, and I think I've got the format and I know what's wrapped around that, the product, service, or the content offering, I'll then look at the best way to fuel that up. And then the last thing that's huge and where I've stumbled in the past, I got better at it, but I stumble, and that's the hardest bit, is to be really critical of the data, to be honest to ourselves that when we're segmenting an audience, especially if we're going for more than one buyer or more than one reader or consumer, is how do you look at the data and then pare that down to the essentials and say, here's a single truth. Now let's spend money, time, and energy, and hopefully we can have fun. And I love your idea, because it's not always a happy time, but I'm an optimist. I always come back to the idea that if I'm doing good work or I'm creating value or generating good content, I'll be happy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things are based off of frequency. And I know a lot of people don't understand in branding, marketing, and building an audience that frequency is so important. And there's three components to that frequency that you're touching upon. And one is the strength of the signal. So as you build that avatar that you're looking for a product, service, solution, or a person, there's a certain energy or frequency or strength of a signal. And a lot of times we lie to ourselves when we're trying to create a brand or build an audience when the frequency isn't strong enough. It never will have the capacity to light up the city that we want it to light up. The second one is what you talked in segmentation or spectrum. You know, it's so important today not to try to please everyone, right? You know, if you want to really go after the masses, the brand is called Trainwreck, right? The only thing that's proven to appeal to the masses, whether you're Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, or the Kardashians, basically, look, 87% of the people are attracted to a train wreck. So, but it's a shallow spectrum, meaning it doesn't have much depth to it, but can be utilized for what it is. It will not have the longevity, that strong frequency at a more narrow spectrum of I'm looking for divorced women who love to do their toenails at 11 p.m. at night. That may sound very specific as a spectrum, but because of social, we're able to extract that from the 4.4 billion people and growing. And there's actually a bigger audience than we've ever been able to reach for something that specific. And then finally, most importantly, is the evolution that you talk about, the learning that occurs from the pivoting, from the re-engineering that I talk about is the clarity of the message. I think where most people fall down in the aspect of building a brand is they just assume that they're perfectly clear and that number one, everyone understands their brand, product, solution, or service. And two, everyone remembers their brand, product, solution, or service, even if they just posted it up there once. And both of those are huge fallacies. That clarity is so important because clarity takes such dedication, consistent repetition in order to effectuate somebody's understanding. It's not what I say, it's what they hear. In order for them to pick it up with their perceptions and their memory, we need to, you cannot post enough. I keep telling people all the time, I'm a top executive coach in America and all around the world, actually. And I'll tell people, you're not posting enough, which is the same advice Gary Vaynerchuk gave me when I started 3.5 years ago. Dave, you got to post more. I'm like, no, people get sick of me. Nobody knows who the hell you are. Literally, you should, what happens is when we start posting enough, or no one's posting enough, but when you start really getting out there like I am, yes, there's a few family members and friends that are like, dude, I do not want to see your face anywhere.
Oh,
well,
sure.
then you're starting to you're starting to be successful. And you know what? If those people don't want to see your face, then stop following me, because that's what you need to do in order to build an audience.
Yeah, well, you just nailed it, right? At the end of the day, you can't sell anything, you can't influence anything, you can't communicate anything if you're not known. And so I'm not saying that no PR is bad PR and all the rest of it, but you have to be known. And that's really where it gets to posting and building the awareness. It gets to stacking the assets, building out the channels, and getting your face in front of everything. And so, the greatest messages, you may not always do the best work. You may not always have the best conversations, but if you're not known, you're going nowhere. The other thing that resonated with me, and when I think about all the modules of or what I call decision modules in entrepreneurship, a series of steps in every decision that we make, is that when you're finding an audience, you actually can't abandon the traditional functions of entrepreneurship. If you've got a product or service, there better be a brand. There better be a product marketing story. We better understand what channels we want. And as we're doing that, we start to think about the routes to market and how much we need to communicate and how much we have to reinforce that story. And as a result of that, we get into the whole, who is our customer? How do we define them? Where are they living? What do they like? Et cetera, et cetera. there is some part of traditionality that never goes, irrespective of the platform. So once you've got all that, then social becomes an amazing platform, whether it's through a book or through TikTok or through Instagram like you're doing, or talking at conferences, sadly online right now for a while, but doing the speaking tour or whatever. You can benefit from all that if you bring the traditionality as well. Without it, it's really hard to build something that's sustainable. And that train wreck analogy is a fabulous one, because you basically talked about two inverted pyramids, one that's very shallow and wide, which means the process of reinvention is going to happen, or you put the same amount of energy into a sharp pyramid where it's going to last longer because you're that much more laser focused. I totally get that. Cool.
I have one more thing to add real quick too, and we talked about it earlier in my bio, right, is the mission of providing value. And I think a lot of times, whether you're in that train wreck spectrum or a very narrow toenail polishing spectrum, the key is to provide value. And there's 5 components to that value. One is credibility, right? So if you're going to be the toenail guy, then make sure that you're the best at it and you have some really good, insightful value that you could provide. 2 is emotional attachment, right? Which the train wreck side takes a king's ship in. And then 3 is quantify the reasons, right? People don't take time. They talk about features and benefits all the time, as in entrepreneurship, but what they don't do is they work off of subjective value, not quantifiable value of here's the reasons why this is valuable. 4, here's the quantitative impact it's going to have on your life. And then 5, here's the quantitative capabilities it gives you. And if you do that, sprinkling the features and benefits through those 5 components, value becomes the collar stay, right? It allows you to have the stickiness and allows the most important thing of building an audience. And that's have your audience tell other people they have to what? Be your audience. And that's where that exponential growth. I know we talked about segmentation in one way. I told Gary Vaynerchuk when I started, I wanted 2 people a year to be ambassadors. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, if I get 2 people that will get me 2 people a year, in 20 years, when I'm 70 years old, I'll have 2 million people getting me 2 million people to help me be happy. And I said, it just keeps going up and up from there. People do not have the patience to understand that. And luckily, it happens a lot faster if you stick to the fact that, like you said, what's that avatar, right? What's that? Because once that avatar gets set and it has the value that you're portraying and a strong signal, the spectrum you want and the clear message, it will grow exponentially, just like your brand in your seminar at theentrepreneurSeminar.com, as well as my own brand and my Friday trainings, which are free for everyone to come to.
I love it. One last question. We'll give one takeaway. What can you, if you build a great audience, what can you hope for? What would you hope for?
Oh, for me, it's simple. If I can get them to have the perspective of how important it is to look upon everything they do in person, on the phone, via email, social media, literally with kindness. I can't, we talk about simple thing. When I tell people, be kind to your future self and do good deeds, if they walk out of there and they stop because there's some trash and they put it away, I watch these things. If they don't leave their trash at their seat, or they go and they smile and hug somebody next to them, like that kindness, now there's something that I can work with. There's an empowerment there that people are starting to change the way they look at things. And when they change the way they look at things, the things they look at change.
I love it. And I'm going to take different words, and I am not copying you here, but unfortunately you're right there. So we would call this what? Customer loyalty. But if I was to frame this, someone that had an experience with me or one of my companies and said, I love this company, or I love what this person is saying, and it's because of that kindness. They feel it because we've offered some value. And that's what you can get. And that's what brings audiences back. We should do another time. I love the qualitative and quantitative measurement side of this, and pinning it on audience is a great conversation. David, I've really loved this conversation. Thanks a lot.
Martin, it's a pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for helping so many entrepreneurs.
And you too.